the council as well. If you would like to speak during the agenda item, whether you speak in support or in opposition, please say so in the chat. Put your name and your address in the chat, and directions to do so are also located in the chat. For privilege of the floor, we ask that you do the same thing. During the privilege of the floor, put your name in the chat along with your address, and the president will call on you. For the privilege of the floor, you have 3 minutes. For public input on agenda items, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would first like to announce that if you are here for bill number 12-22, for the property located, let me get the right address. The alley vacation for the Far Northwest Neighborhood Association. That has been tabled until April the 11th for the next council meeting, 2 weeks from now. And also, if you are here for, make sure I'm getting the right information, bill number 2217, which the housing resolution, that has been tabled until April 25th, 2022. So any of those bills, if you're here for that or in the virtual audience, those 2 bills have been tabled. Thank you.
Point of order.
Yes.
Does there have to be a motion to table the bill in an order?
I was announcing it, and then I'm going down the line.
Oh,
But I'm announcing it in case someone is here in the audience or in the virtual audience, that they don't have to stay for the meeting.
Thank you for the clarification.
But thank you. That is still on the agenda. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that. Now I will go into the original agenda. Disrespectful, rude, or disruptive speech or actions will not be tolerated. Such speech and/or actions, as well as verbal attacks on any person, may result in the individual, without notice, forfeiting the remainder of his or her allotted time. At this time, we will have our invocation by Minister Ken Hardy.
Let us pray. Heavenly God, our Father, we thank you, Lord, for this meeting. We thank you, Lord, for these leaders. We thank you, Lord, for our citizens. We thank you, Lord, for our leaders, that they will look to you when the winds get too high, and that they may not lean on their own understanding. We pray for your gifts of patience and understanding. And also, we pray for your spirit of peace. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. At this time, may we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Clerk Jones, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Lee?
Present.
Councilmember Warner?
Present.
Councilmember Wax?
Present.
Councilmember White?
Present.
And Councilmember Tomas Morgan is excused. Councilmember Hammond?
Present.
Vice President Niskoski?
Present.
President McBride?
Present.
8 present.
Thank you. There are no reports today on subcommittee on the minutes. And for special resolution commemorating March 2022, a Women's History Month, sponsor, Councilman Davis.
I need to read it.
Yes. Please read it. Thank you so much.
A special resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, commemorating March 2022 as Women's History Month.
Thank you. The sponsors, please.
Appreciate it. A special resolution, it was put together because we do have National Women's History Month, and I didn't want to miss it. I wanted it the last time, but we couldn't get it done. But I think it's necessary to recognize all the women that are in our society that have made positive contributions to our society. You know, those that I serve with here on this common council. I have a wife at home, I have a mother, and I have cousins and aunts, you know, so, you know, it's always a good thing to recognize those who are obviously out there to help and support us. Without a woman, we can't progress as society. So I just think that this is a thing, a necessary thing. And I'm going to begin starting reading. Whereas the first International Women's Day was a global celebration of the economic, political, and social achievements of women, was celebrated on March 8th, 1911. And whereas the United Nations has sponsored International Women's Day since 1975, when it adopted a resolution to recognize the fact that securing peace and social progress and full enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms require the active participation, equality, and development of women, and to acknowledge the contributions of women to the strengthening of international peace and security. And whereas President Jimmy Carter issued the first presidential proclamation declaring March 8th as National Women's History Week in 1980, and whereas United States Congress expanded the week of the entire month March in 1987.
And whereas the United States and several other countries around the world recently celebrated International Women's Day on March 8th, and whereas the theme of 2022 is designated by the National Women's History Alliance is Women Providing Healing, Promoting Hope, which is both a tribute to the ceaseless work of caregivers and frontline workers during this ongoing pandemic, and also a recognition of the thousands of ways that women of all cultures have provided both healing and hope throughout history. And whereas current events establish more than ever the need for women to contribute to providing healing and promote hope, now, therefore, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, as follows. Section 1, the Common Council of the City of South Bend of Indiana recognizes and appreciates the countless contributions women make in all areas of life, not only during the month of March, but also during each and every day. Section 2, the Common Council also recognizes and appreciates the 5 women members of this council for their contributions to the well-being and progress of this city. Section 3, this resolution shall become effective upon the date of passage, dated this 28th day of March, 2022.
Thank you. May I have you both state your name and address for the record?
Lori Hammond, 2658 Tomahawk Trail, South Bend.
Thank you.
Henry Davis Jr., 5117 Idlewood Drive, South Bend, Indiana, 46619.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the council? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote by the council by acclamation. Are all those in favor of resolution, the special resolution commemorating the March 2022 as Women History Month? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you so much. There are no reports from the city offices. I would now entertain a motion to resolve into the committee of the whole.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
You didn't have public comment for the resolution, but you don't have to, I guess. You burn past it.
Resolutions, no public.
I don't have to, yep, I think I closed it, I'm sorry.
No, I was fine, but I was just like pointing out that's what happened. You have public here, so.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It has been motioned and seconded, and I don't remember if we all voted. I believe we did.
You voted by acclamation.
Yes. Thank you so much. The motion is carried.
The Committee of the Whole is in session. This is the portion of the council's meetings where bills are given a second reading and public hearing. I wish to share with you that bills that will be given a second reading and public hearing have been given a first reading and set for a committee meeting and public hearing prior to this evening's meeting. In addition, you will hear from the chairperson of the committee where the bill was discussed and the results of their discussion. If the proposed ordinance is a zoning ordinance, a report from a staff member will be given. In all other situations, the formal presentation of the proposed ordinance will immediately follow the committee report. The formal presentation shall be untimed. We're going to have a reading of Bill 1022. Clerk Jones, would you please give Bill 1022 a second reading?
Yes. 1022, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, to vacate the following described property, a 12-foot wide public alley running from Dewey Avenue on the east to Howard Street on the west for a distance of 205 feet plus or minus, South Bend, Indiana.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, Chair, that was at the Public Works and Property Vacations Committee, and it got a favorable recommendation to the Committee of the Whole.
Is the petitioner present? And I ask that you state your name and your address and share with us key points regarding the bill that is before us.
Thank you. Mike Danch from Danch Harner and Associates, 1643 Commerce Drive here in South Bend, representing the petitioner. And as we had mentioned in the committee meeting, what we're asking to do is to vacate a 12-foot wide public alley that runs from Dewey Avenue on the east down to Howard Street on the west. This area is bounded by South Bend Avenue on the north. What we're asking to do is to vacate this alley so that we potentially can have a mixed-use development on the property. Presently, this alley bisects several parcels of ground, and the owners would like to combine everything together, which necessitates having this alley vacated. As we had mentioned in the committee meeting, what would also happen here is that after council would hopefully approve this alley vacation, we would go ahead and prepare a lot adjustment to create one larger legal lot of record for the development. And as had been mentioned by Angela Smith from Community Investment, depending on the type of development will go in there, we potentially would be back before council to ask for rezoning for the type of use that would go on this property. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
Council members, do you have any questions of the petitioner? At this time, then we'll go to the public hearing portion. Clerk Jones, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor of Bill 1022?
There is no one from the public that has expressed interest to speak in favor of Bill 1022.
Okay. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition of Bill 1022?
Neither is there one any present wishing to speak in opposition of Bill 1022.
Point of
Are
order.
there-
I
are
see
there-
some people in the audience
Oh.
raising their hands.
Okay,
For
are you,
1022.
Come over
you
to the
need to come
microphone.
to the microphone and give your name and address? And are you for or against?
I just want to have some clarification because my name is Gloria Murphy, and there's a church that the
Give
only
your address,
access to
please.
the church.
Gloria, we're so glad to have you, but we need your
Hi.
address.
211 South Michigan Street. The church address? There's a church that sits on Howard Street, and the only access to the church is to the church parking lot is from the alley. So we need clarification as to, is that going to be eliminated?
Mr. Danch, or can somebody from the clerk's office put the map up? I believe you'll see this is on the east side of 23, and the church is on the west side of 23, is that correct?
Yes.
So I believe this won't affect the church at all, but
No, this shouldn't have any effect on the church
we
and
can-
the access. to
we can
parking
put a map up so that she can see where the alley that's being closed.
There you go.
That's it, right?
Just asking where it's at.
So you,
What has
the
it?
church is on Howard Street.
All right, sir.
You got access to it?
Is the church on Howard, church, is it on Howard Street? Is the church on Howard Street?
The church is on Howard Street. The alley is right, the alley runs alongside of the church, which is on Dewey. The alley is Dewey's alley, I guess.
Okay.
Petitioner, if you can.
Sure.
Give us
I-
something.
Yeah, the church, I'm not aware the church was using this particular alley. This alley is on the west side of Dewey, and it runs down toward Howard Street. There's not anybody using this particular alley to get to a parking lot that I'm aware of. This alley is totally bounded by South Bend Avenue on the north, Dewey on the east, and Howard Street on the south. This does not have a parking lot on it.
The church
And
has a
the-
parking lot there, and that is
the
the only
church-
access to the church parking lot.
The church would have to be able to get to the parking lot from Dewey Avenue.
What's the church's
That's it
address?
right there,
Or the name?
What's the name of the church?
the Light of the World Church.
Is it possible for you to
Am I-
point to where you're saying the church is?
Oh,
Be careful on the steps, but you can come up to, we're trying to see where you're.
me if I'm right, but.
I'm gonna put a bigger map up.
Yeah.
This is not the main Howard Street.
Can you minimize him?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Howard Street.
Because it's not the main Howard Street. I think she's thinking here. This is Dewey,
There it is.
Howard, South Bend. So this is the alley that we're talking about here.
We keep kicking Troy.
You've got two windows open.
Is it,
Pretty sure this is what we're.
okay.
I can't find it. The light.
Okay, wait, he's.
What did they call it?
Okay, the alley, this is Dewey.
Okay, here's.
So this would be the alley. The church is right here.
Oh, it doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, the alley's way. That's a different alley? Yes. They're doing one on the
Yeah, the alley is up there, and the one they're doing is up there. So it's not,
Yeah, the black and,
so they talking about.
black and
Thank you for coming.
All right.
I'm not gonna.
No one in opposition, no one in favor. The public portion of this bill is now closed. Council members, would you like to make a statement regarding Bill 1022? If not, I will entertain a motion regarding Bill 10-22.
I'll make a motion to send Bill 1022 to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been second. Clerk Jones, please call the roll.
Yes. Councilmember Warner,
aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President Niskotsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right.
Thank you.
Bill 10-22 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. We won't hear 12-22. It's been sent to for the next council meeting, correct? That was the,
I believe we still need a motion.
okay.
So I would like to motion that we table Bill 12-22 until April 11th.
Second?
It is been motioned and seconded. Clerk Jones, please give the roll.
Yes. Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
President McBride?
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right. Bill 12-22 will be tabled until the next council meeting. Now, I need a motion to accept substitute Bill 13-22.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Okay. I'll take the
Roll call, please.
Yes. Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
President McBride?
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right. So we will now hear substitute Bill 13-22. Is the petitioner present? I ask that you state your name, your address, and share with us key points regarding the bill that's before us.
You got to read it.
Yes, Corey Lance,
Oh,
615.
I'm sorry. Clerk Jones, will you please read substitute Bill 13-22?
Yes. A public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, to vacate the following described property, alley vacation, street alley near 1101 King Street.
All right, is there a petition present? I ask that you state your name and address and share with us key points regarding the bill that's before us.
Yes, Corey Lance, 615 Cushing Street, South Bend. We purchased the property at 1101 King Street in June of 2021, and we, by recommendation of Public Works, we are trying to vacate the alley south of McCartney and north of King Street and east of Kessler Boulevard.
Oh, I'm so sorry. All right. We need to ask for the committee report. I'm sorry.
This was in, this was in Public Works and Property Vacation, and it was, received a favorable recommendation to the full council. Oh, I'm sorry, to the Committee of the Whole with the updated language of the substitute bill.
Okay. All right. Petitioner, you can now give us your key points.
Yes, the alley is not being utilized at all by anyone. There's actually, on the west side of the alley, there's brush and overgrown stuff there, so we are vacating it. We own two properties north of our property at 1101 King Street, lots 56 and 55, and by vacating the alley, we'll be able to join our properties together and then use that for parking space and actually drainage for our parking area.
All right. Council members, do you have any questions for the petitioner? Councilwoman Lori Hammond?
Thank you. So you're stating that the alley currently is not usable because of overgrowth?
Correct, and no one utilizes it because there's no garage doors or houses on those properties that would need to utilize the alley.
Thank you.
Anyone else, any other council members? At this time, we'll go to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor of Bill 13-22?
There is no one from the public expressing interest to speak in favor of this bill.
Well, we're
Could
going,
step up to the podium, sir.
is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of Bill 13-22? You can now come to the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Frank Mercado. I'm at 709 Juniper Place, South Bend. So the development of this recreational center, is that right? Is that going to increase property taxes in that neighborhood?
I don't know if that's is something that we would have an answer to.
Well, that's a concern. I have a rental property on that area.
I'm sorry, sir. What's your question again?
Is the development of that recreational center going to increase property
Absolutely.
taxes?
Absolutely.
And the whole,
The whole area will get an increase.
well, that's not sitting very well with me, probably anybody else that lives on that street.
Well, no, but that's how development happens. So as new things, new infrastructure is placed in there, new buildings, whatever that is, the area gets a new assessment, and it's usually an increase of taxes. Doesn't mean exactly that happens at a very high level, but my bet will be that you will receive some sort of increase. And you can always appeal those increases as well.
So there's also a concern about possible trouble that might come from the youth that are going to be using that facility, fighting, maybe potential trafficking of substances because of, well, you know how kids are. They're going to gather together and they're going to try and he used that as like a hub to meet other people. There's already a problem in that area with gunshots at night and drug dealing and whatever. And I think this is just might even add more flame to that already problem that's there by bringing more younger kids in there and creating different problems to add to the ones that are already there. They're going to be gathering around outside the building, around there, and it's just going to be a bad thing.
Okay, well, thank you.
Providing that nobody's going to be or watching it or anything like that. Besides that, there's the Brown Academy that's being used for after-school programs. And, now the same situation is going on with over at the Martin Luther King Center when there was a shooting over there because they were selling drugs in that area, in the corner, meeting there.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir, for your comments, and I'm going to allow the petitioner to be able to address it.
Yeah, we appreciate your input on that. We want to make sure our neighbors are on board with what we're doing, but at the same time, you mentioned it being a hub. It's going to be a hub for youth and families in a way that's going to mitigate a lot of the things that you're concerned about, the violence, the drugs, all of those things. In fact, we've been on Portage Avenue now for 4 years and been in the neighborhood, the one Keller Park neighborhood, for 13, and we've seen a lot of these issues go down because of the impact that we've had with developing real relationships and being invested in the lives of students and families. So I understand your concerns, but the violence, the drugs, those things that you're concerned about are only going to go down, and it's been proven the last 13 years. The students and the families just need people to be in real relationship and not fear them. And you mentioned it being a hub for violence. It's actually going to be a hub for belonging and safety and hope. So while it might increase some property taxes by $10 a house, it's going to provide a ton of value and impact for this community for decades to come. So I also don't understand how that's necessarily connected to vacating the alley. The development of the property is still moving forward, whether we vacate the alley or not. Vacating the alley just allows us to do a few of the things that are needed to maximize the property.
Well, my concern is just what's going to happen afterwards of the development of that rec center.
What I would suggest is that you have a meeting with them and get to see their plans.
That'd be great.
And so that you be on board what they're doing, okay?
But then there's the semi-traffic that goes down that street as well. They still use that King Street to bring heavy trucks in and out of the steel warehouse.
What they're vacating is an alley. They're not vacating in the street.
No, I understand, but, you know, if you're gonna have kids around there, you're gonna have that big traffic in there.
We've been in close communication. We've been in close communication with Steel Warehouse and the ownership and manager there, and they're totally on board with what we're doing. And so we talked about that exact thing, and they're excited that we're bringing this to the neighborhood. And like I said, we've been here for a while, and this is just an addition to the good things that have happened. I would love for you to stop by at our building at 1519 Portage to discuss further and show you our plans, like Councilman Lee said.
Thank you, sir. The time allotted is up. Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Council members, would anybody like to make any statements concerning Bill 13-22? I just would like to say that I've watched Transformation Ministries from the beginning come into the neighborhood and the great work that they're doing with our inner city kids. They're teaching them job skills. They're teaching them education. They're doing a really, really great service to the neighborhood. And so I would, again, encourage you to schedule an appointment and go see their facility and what they've been doing. Nothing but good things, a lot of hope for individuals that are, for our young people, and we got to find positive things for them to do. So I support this effort. I will now entertain a motion regarding Bill 13-22.
I'll make a motion to send substitute Bill 13-22 to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Clerk Jones, please call the roll.
Yes. Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President Niskoski,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
8 ayes.
All right. Substitute Bill 13-22 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. I will now entertain a motion to rise from the committee of the whole and report back to the full council.
So moved. Second.
It has been moved in second. Clerk Jones, please call the roll.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President Niskoski,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The full council is back in session. This portion of our meeting is where bills are given a third reading and action is taken regarding bills that were heard during the committee of the whole. Clerk Jones, would you give Bill 1022 a third reading?
Yes. 1022, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, to vacate the following described property: a 12-foot wide public alley running from Dewey Avenue on the east to Howard Street on the west for a distance of 205 feet plus or minus, South Bend, Indiana.
Thank you. Councilman Lee, is there a recommendation from the committee of the whole regarding Bill 1022?
Yes. Bill 10-22 comes to you with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion regarding Bill 1022.
Motion for passage.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Vice President Niskoski,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember White, Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Bill 1022 has been adopted. Clerk Jones, would you please give substitute Bill 1322 a third reading?
Yes. 1322, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, to vacate the following described property: alley vacation, street alley near 1101 King Street.
Thank you. Councilman Lee, is there a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole regarding Bill 1322?
Yes, substitute Bill 13-22 comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion regarding substitute Bill 1322.
Move for passage?
Second.
Clerk Jones, would you call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President Niskoski,
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 1322 has been adopted. Resolutions. This is the portion of the council meeting where the Common Council hears bills filed as proposed resolutions. The title of each proposed resolution is read by the city clerk. A report from the committee chairperson of the standing committee to which the bill was referred to for an advisory review and recommendation is then given. During the public portion on each proposed resolution, members of the public are invited to address the council. We ask that you please give your name, address, and comments on the bill. If you have any questions, they will be addressed by the presenter during their rebuttal. Each member of the public is limited to 5 minutes, with those speaking in favor going first, followed by those in opposition, then a 5-minute rebuttal for the presenter of the bill. Resolution 2216. Clerk Jones, would you please read Resolution 22-16?
2216, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, authorizing and approving the City of South Bend, Indiana's opt-back into the State of Indiana structured settlement of opioid litigation under Indiana Code 4-16-15.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, Bill 2216 was heard in front of Health and Public Safety Committee earlier today, and it was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I see we have a presenter. Will you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, thank you. My name is Aladine DeRose, City Attorney, with offices on the 12th floor of this building. Thank you, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here to introduce this bill this evening. It is a request that you authorize and approve the opt-back into the state structured settlement for the opioid litigation. Opioid litigation was the result of an opioid epidemic across the country, affecting South Bend and all other parts of the state and country. It arose in the 1990s when certain drug manufacturers began manufacturing opioid pain relief medication, synthetic opioid medications, and marketed them heavily without notifying the public or physicians that they were addictive. In fact, they were highly addictive, and in the 2010 to 2017 era, it resulted in deaths, overdoses, fetal or newborn dependency, and a host of other problems that our city, as well as cities throughout the country, have dealt with. Last year around this time, we came before you to request that we opt out of the state's plan because at that time, the state, which was organizing settlements on behalf of its cities, had a very inequitable, in our opinion, plan that provided for 15% to cities and towns and counties and the balance to the state itself for its purposes. In the time between our last appearance here for this purpose and today, legislation occurred in the General Assembly that has been much more equitable and which we think is fair and reasonable. And the new legislation allows the cities and counties to participate and share in structured opioid settlements 50/50 between the state and the local governments. The distribution has been changed. It was based on population, that is, the distribution of monies themselves. It was based originally on population or per capita. It is now based on actual harm to a community, with 3 factors, each being equal: the amount of opioid distributed within a community, the number of opioid deaths that have occurred, and the number of persons who suffer opioid use disorder. The city of South Bend believes that this proposal is fair. The 50/50 participation also requires that a certain ratio be applied to different purposes. So 30% of what the city would receive is unrestricted. 70% must go to programs for the treatment, prevention, and care of opioid residuals within the city. That same formula is used by the state for its share, so it will also receive 30% unrestricted and 70% for state programs also devoted to care and treatment and prevention of opioid disorders. So with that, we're asking that you allow us to opt back in. This will be the last thing we can do. Once we're in, we have to stay in, but we believe that that distributions through this formula and through this state settlement is in the best interest of the city. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. At this time, I would open it up for council. Do you have any questions? Councilwoman Laura Hammond.
Thank you, Aladeen. Can you give us a number of those in South Bend that have been impacted?
I do not have that data at this time. The data's been collected nationally, and there's a national determination of impact for every community. We have ourselves collected data as to the harms that we've experienced through the costs of caring for those who are affected, those who are overdosing or who have died. And that's through the police and fire departments, because they are the ones who see these problems. We do have data. We have not been able to organize it in a fashion that we would be comfortable sharing it at this time, but we have raw data.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Councilman Warner.
Thank you. Aladeen, can you remind me, I believe last fall when we were looking at this the first time, the state was it 15%?
Yes, the state was,
Okay,
yes.
so we've gone up from 15 to 50.
Yes,
So
15 to
it's-
50, so it's a significant adjustment.
And
Yes,
then my
thank you.
second question is, I seem to remember from earlier that this would be, the payments would be over 18 years or more.
Yeah, yes, there are 2 settlements currently that have been approved and are ready for distribution. One settlement, the larger settlement, is between distributors, McKesson and others, and that is an 18-year distribution. It's the larger number. The smaller distribution is called the J&J distribution, Johnson & Johnson, and its affiliates, and that's distributable over 11 years.
Okay.
Outstanding yet, and we don't know what the numbers will be, but that's the Purdue Pharma and the Shackler family bankruptcy that is, I think, has been approved by the bankruptcy court, but there's a time in which some persons can object, and I think the objection was mostly to whether the bankruptcy court could be the final disposition of Shackler family liability.
Thank you.
We don't know when that will happen, so.
Councilman Lee.
But without an exact number, you said that South Bend stands to receive $2.6 million and $655,000?
Correct.
Could you
Two
talk about that a little bit?
Yes, it's actually closer to the total, the net is about 2.6. The total gross is about 2.8 from the McKesson Distributors Liability Fund, and the 655 is from Johnson & Johnson. But the payout after attorney fees is somewhat less, so the net is about 598 for the J&J and about 2.5 for the McKesson.
And 30% of that is unrestricted, and 70% of it has to go towards
Correct.
Programs.
Correct. The payout each year under the 18-year distribution is going to be a small one, so we won't have a bulk fund to do large programs. They will need to be, probably, we'll see how we need to structure them, but they'll probably be small things, or the funding of drugs that will assist those who are dependent.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis?
Sure, thank you. So the monies that we're talking about that'll be coming over extended period of time will obviously go to outside organizations that do programming, that helps out with folks who have been impacted by the opioid crisis, and also education, probably for kids, so that they don't, get caught in that web. Would you know if any of the other dollars go to like city-driven organizations? I mean, you have, crime prevention could be one. I'm just asking, so.
And I think we would look at that with the council's input at budgeting time, because these funds will be available for budget purposes for their intended purpose. As I said, 30% for whatever use is appropriate, as the council determines with the administration, and 70% that must be designated for prevention care. And
So that would be like a South Bend Police Department, that could be like a SAFE, that could be
Correct.
like a GVI.
exactly.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Thank you. At this time, I would open it up to the public for public comments. Clerk Jones, do you see anyone in the virtual audience?
I do not see anyone in the virtual audience who is expressing interest for public comment on this resolution.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor or against Resolution 22-16? Thank you. At this time, the public portion is now closed. I will turn to the council. Do you have any other comments? There are no comment?
Sure, I'm sorry. I asked that question specifically for the reason of, we've talked about members on this council should not have the ability to vote on their own budget because it is against state law. I asked a question about crime prevention, and I'm saying that those who are a part of that, because they will receive that money, that's exactly what is getting ready to happen, that they recuse themselves from voting. I know it's probably going through, but it'd probably be good practice that we do not vote on our own salaries or our own budgets from additional dollars coming in from the state.
Councilman Wax?
You gotta give me a little more clarity.
Step back right now.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
It was two people talking at the same time, and I was...
I didn't hear it
asking
either,
which
that's
one.
why I asked what you said.
So
You
I'm
said-
going to step back for a minute.
Okay.
Maybe I'll come back later.
Councilman Lee?
I'm trying to figure out where that comment came from, or what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that you work for SAVE, which is through a program that the city helps fund and hopes that you guys do the best work that you can to prevent crime. I'm saying that this money is going to end up in your guys' bank account. And I'm saying that because of what we do here, it will probably be good practice that you recuse yourself from the vote, because you are going to benefit from your vote today.
Mr. Davis, I work with group violence
You
intervention.
should listen to me. You really should listen to me.
Point of
but
order.
This is ridiculous.
You have to let the man speak, Mr. Davis. You
Oh,
can't
oh.
interrupt him.
I work
Can't
in
interrupt me.
violence intervention. We deal with gang and gun activity,
Say, man,
not
you can go ahead and
opioids.
vote for it. I'm just trying to help you out.
Mr. Davis, he's speaking.
This is not your floor. This is
Mr.
not your
Davis.
meeting. It's the chair's meeting.
I
No,
think-
you're out of order.
No, you're out of order
Well-
because what you're saying doesn't make any sense, brother.
Let me
All right.
interject right now. The money is not received, the money is not allocated, and the council has authority to have input whatever administration proposes to us, which for us to guesstimate, or I think we can deal with that at that time. Your comment is definitely well taken and noted in the minutes, but I think it's a little premature for us to argue about something that we don't even have the funding for and don't know when that's coming down. So if I may just say that to everyone. Is there any other comments? Mr. Wax?
Thank you. I was just going to thank Aladeen and the rest of City Legal for continuing to make sure. I know we made a decision to opt out earlier, and they stayed on top of it to keep up on what the best opportunities for the city is. So I appreciate those efforts and look forward to doing good things with this money when we get it, whatever those things may be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion for Resolution 22-16.
I move for the adoption of Resolution 22-16.
Second?
Clerk Jones?
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President Niskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Resolution 22-16 has been adopted. Bills on first reading. Clerk Jones, would you please give Bill 14-22 a first reading?
Yes. 1422.
A point of order, I'm sorry.
Do we need to bring up 2217?
No, it was already voted on and tabled, and
I don't think it was.
I think,
This wasn't
which one?
the resolution, 2217.
Oh, thank you. There is a second one. I'm sorry, it's already on my notes. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Clerk Jones, would you read Resolution 22-17?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Clarification. Robert Rules of Order says you just have to open back up that session for resolutions before you go back into reading the resolutions, to go back into vote on resolutions. You just can't call it back because there was a mistake made. So
Thank
you're
you.
still stuck at first reading, so what I'm saying, you have to recall
Thank you.
this section back.
Parliamentary, can you give me the proper language?
Well, since there is no motion required to move on to first readings, I believe that you can simply go back to the resolution and read it. If there had been a motion, a required motion, then it would have to be withdrawn.
Thank you so much. Clerk Jones, could you read Resolution 22-17, please?
2217, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, calling for the cooperation of the City of South Bend, the South Bend Housing Authority, and developers to create, fund, and implement an initiative to remove barriers to affordable housing in South Bend.
Thank you.
I move that Bill 2217 is tabled to the 25th of April,
Second.
2022.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. roll,
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President Niskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
No.
President McBride.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you.
Bills on first reading. Clerk Jones, would you please give Bill 14-22 a first reading?
First, 1422, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the South Bend Municipal Code at Chapter 2, Article 9, Section 2-129, to change the residency restriction of commission members.
Thank you. Motion to send Bill 1422 to Community Relations Committee and public hearing and third reading for April 11th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for Bill 14-22. May I have a vote by acclamation? Or do I, by acclamation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion's carried. Unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business from the council at this time?
Yes, there is, and I wanted to, bear with me for a moment. We, I think it was, the date was March 21st, 2022. I sent a message, a letter to President McBride and 3 of the members from the council for clarification and also for help. I asked for support because I have been getting stories and conversations about how I am a detriment to my district, and I am not necessarily helping my district. I am not signing up for lights. I'm not signing up for infrastructure updates, things that I think that are completely offbeat, and it's coming from members of the council. I'm not going to name any names right now because I think that that's insufficient. But what I will say is that South Bend is the second district of the city, the district that I represent. We have a list of probably like 7 different projects that's going on. Martin Luther King Jr. Center, neighborhood plans for the Kennedy Park Neighborhood Association, Monroe Park Neighborhood Association, and the Northwest Side Neighborhood Association. You have demolition projects that need to happen in order for the district itself to grow, which is the Jewelry's building, the building that's on Sample Street that has decayed because of the fire last year and years and years of not being used. You have several of these manufacturing plants that's off of Circle Avenue across the street from Frankie's Barbecue. You have the factory that's on Cherry Street, and you have Beck's Lake, which you just got back and we figured out that there was contamination. You have the South Bend Housing Authority. You have the still dealing with and have been confronted with 1,000 houses, 1,000 days with the lots, and the overgrown fields and weeds that we have to take care of because of the houses being knocked down. You have the container home projects that are going to happen on Pagan Street. And there has been 2 rounds of federal funding that has gone to the administration. There has not been any affordable housing plans put together. You have a third coming in this summer around the June, July mark, which is going to be more millions of dollars for us to help plan and reduce or to bring up the area as it relates to housing. None of these things have been put on paper. I've asked for help from 4 members of this council. I get a phone call from 1, but the rest I have not. And the point I'm going to make and the point that I'm trying to make is that if we're not here to help each other, then we shouldn't be here trying to hurt the next person. Those things are real things. That contamination thing over there in LaSalle Park is real. Many of you grew up in that area, so did I. I'm sure that we have been recipients of lead and also arsenic in our system during the course of the time that we lived over there. I'm sure that that's been it. And there needs to be a focus on what is happening with people of lower economic scale and people of color in this city, because every place that I just named off of this list, that's where we sit, that's where we live, and that's in our environment. So, again, I asked for help. I'm asking for more help. I just don't understand why the help hasn't come or why I haven't gotten more phone calls or emails from members of the council that I sent this email to.
Well, if I can speak for myself of why I didn't respond, because the same access that I have and the same issues that I have in the 3rd district, I'm the 3rd district representative, and the president, which just runs the meetings and have 1 of 9 votes, but some of the same issues regarding whether it's housing, poverty, regarding the census information that we receive, we have the same type of disparities. So my job in the 3rd district is to address the needs of the third district. And the second point I would make is the budget of 2022, the items that you emailed, most of those things that you named are in the budget that most of us passed from the council, and which, in fact, you were one who did not vote for things, and that was in the 2022 budget. But those things that are lighting, the demos and all that stuff is in this year's budget that we passed overall. So that's just my comment. I don't know who else was, I don't remember who else the email was referred to, but I can speak to myself.
It went to you as well as the 3 at-large members. That's what it went to. Rachel's not here, so you can't talk for her, so I talk to Lori on a regular basis, so I understand where she's at.
Thank you.
But what I will say is that regardless of my vote, if you have the same issues in your area as I have in my area, the collaboration should be a lot stronger than you shutting me off or saying that that's your problem and this is my problem. It's a citywide issue, because when you vote for the budget is not for per district, it's for the city across the board.
I agree, and it's just if it's reciprocated both ways, we definitely can work together.
Well, you haven't
Absolutely.
asked me for any help.
That's because I represent the district that I serve, and if it's something that we vote on together that we need, I'm also always been an advocate of supporting, whether it's in my district or not. I was a firm believer in supporting the housing authority. I was a firm believer in, for the juries and things of that nature.
And I still need that help. That building is still up there.
And I'll yield my time.
And that building still has asbestos that's leaking into the sewer system. It's the same conversation. As well as when you did become the president of the South Bend Common Council, you took on a role of leadership to help facilitate the necessary conversations and also policy matters that impact the city as it relates to each district or just the entire city as a whole.
Thank you so much.
So you don't get to pick and choose with how you participate and
I
help
can
people
when I
out.
represent a district. I'm not an at-large council person. So
You're the
when my
president of
vote
the
counts
council,
for
ma'am.
one person,
You're
my
the
role
president
as
of the
the
council.
president of the council is to run the meetings.
No, that's
and
not
to-
your
And to
role.
also give the standing committees in which of what I've done. Other than that, I support by coming to all the meetings and functions. But like I said, if you look at the budget and the things that you voted, and it does matter, if you are asking for the same help in which you voted against, that's difficult to assist.
No, it's
when
not
you-
difficult to assist because the
When
money
you
that I
didn't vote
asked
for it in your own district.
But no, it didn't. I voted for it against the whole entire city budget. That's what you're missing in that. You keep saying it's
I'm not missing it.
district-based.
It's public
Our
record.
budget is not
And I'll yield.
district-based. Our district is not, our district-based. Our budget isn't. Our budget is citywide. And if you
Thank
have
you. We
the
can-
same, but if
we
you have
can
those
have
same
this
issues.
conversation
No,
later
we're gonna
on.
have it now.
No,
If you
no,
don't
we're
have-
not.
Why can't
No, we're
we?
not, because you and I can have this conversation.
You don't
and
talk to
not-
me. You just said that you don't talk to
No,
me.
I didn't say I didn't
Yes,
talk to
you
you.
did. I
didn't
just
say I
asked you
didn't
for
talk to
help,
you.
and you just said that you are unwilling to help.
I said-
You said you had the
I
third
said the
district.
reason
That's
why
your,
I
that's your
did not,
issue.
because if there's a light out or something happening in the second district, I go to those meetings, I reach out, and I do what I am tasked to do in the third district. I'm not an at-large council member, but I also have supported of everything that you've asked by approving the budget per my vote. Is there any other comments or unfinished business at this time?
I say we move on to new business.
Unless there's other unfinished business that someone else has?
I would just like to say that I do think it's important that we revisit some of the ARPA funds that, as a council, we set aside. We were not in full agreement as to some of the proposals that came from the administration around budget time. And we do want to make sure that we get those funds appropriately assigned.
Thank you. And I believe that we do have a copy of the APRA funds that we approved during that budget, so it will show what the balance remaining is in that. So I'll make sure everyone get a copy of that.
Thank you.
I would just second that. I think sometimes between appropriations and when things come into play. So instead of waiting until later on for inter-budget transfers, maybe it would make sense to get an update to see if there is any changes from the budget proposal.
And I think if my memory serves me right, the last update that I had asked for was that most of the monies we appropriated for APRA, but it was not passed. Well, It's an appropriation for housing, demolition, and green functions and things of that nature. It's all outlined, but being that we did not pass the salaries, it held up the, from the
An updated
administrations. But we do have the layout still of what we appropriated, so that we'll make sure that that's sent out to everybody again.
Yeah, President McBride, I have been in dialogue with Mr. Parker,
Okay,
so I'm in the, be getting that date set up.
thank
Didn't
you.
hear what you say.
Should be getting a personnel and finance date set up for that.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Is there any new business? At this time, we will open it up for privilege of the floor.
We have someone virtually, I believe, Lee Davis. Mr. Davis, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and your address for the record, please.
Let me make the statement, please,
Oh, I'm
before.
sorry.
No, you're fine. Disrespectful, rude, or disruptive speech or actions will not be tolerated. Such speech and/or actions, as well as verbal attacks on any one person, may result in an individual without notice forfeiting the remainder of his or her allotted times. Individuals who wish to address the council must state their name and residential address. Individuals will be limited to 3 minutes only. The maximum time limit for this portion of the meeting shall be 30 minutes. Individuals shall not be permitted to address topics which the council has heard previously tonight on the agenda. The council president may assign a topic raised by an individual during the privileges of the floor to the appropriate council member and/or request the city clerk to contact a member of the city administration for review, and topics assigned shall be responded to at the next scheduled council meeting. Clerk Jones?
Okay, we have two speakers. The first is Lee Davis. Mr. Davis, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and your address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Lee Davis from South Bend. I've been to the Whole Woman's Health Clinic on Lincoln Way. Regardless of how we feel about abortion, the protesters there are very noisy, disturbing the peace, and they are rude. Standing with their signs, the protesters obstruct the traffic line of sight, getting in and out of the clinic. They had a tent there Saturday that got blown off the grass into the street, and inside the tent were two kids. This was very unsafe. I know that they're standing on public property, but this was dangerous for everyone involved, even people driving by on Lincoln Way. I'm concerned for the safety of the patients and the protesters. Our police need to enforce the obstruction and noise laws and cool things off out there so that something worse doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have John. John, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and your address for the record, please.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure why it says John, but this is Jordan, 424 South Michigan Street, Unit 660, South Bend, Indiana, 46601. I just wanted to share some thoughts. I'm really happy to see that Rebuilding Together is receiving CDBG funds to do home repair work out in the far west side areas. I know specifically there's going to be a number of houses addressed in the lakeside, but I think it's also important to note that that in the last budget cycle, there were a number of people in a number of organizations in District 2 that actually pressed Henry to vote against the budget because there was a lack of clarity around where the funding and the dollars that were proposed were actually going to go. So we have reached out, had called for meetings with council members, sent in comments, concerns, asking specifically where these dollars would go. For example, we wanted to know if there would be a housing plan, if housing dollars for a plan would actually come to the lakeside, just as other neighborhoods have received funding last year for a neighborhood plan. I'm sorry, I'm in a neighborhood plan. And so I know there were at least 5 or 6 organizations, neighborhood groups, just activist organizations that had met with Henry and put pressure on him to ensure that the mayor was clear about where those dollars would go and clear with the council. And there was a lack of clarity there. And so I feel like that's kind of where a lot of this confusion is because it's not clear to the public or to those of us who've been pressing for dollars to specifically come to our areas, it's not clear to us what exactly is coming. So if there's a way that folks can try to collaborate, you know, to ensure that folks who've been waiting a long time actually get the support that they want, I think we can move in a better fashion and get things done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Geiger. Anyone else, Clerk Jones?
Yes, we have Kat Redding. Ms. Redding, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and your address for the record, please.
Ms.
Hi,
Redding?
yes, Catherine Redding, and that is 418 Lamont Terrace, South Bend, Indiana. It seems to me that what Henry is asking for is he's asking for support. I know that many other districts and census tracts also have lead contaminants. Actually, there's 9 other census tracts that has also been identified with lead poisoning. And I don't think it's too much to ask that as city elected officials, we come together and figure out a reasonable way forward to spearhead the 80% of the housing stock that contains lead contaminants. This, to me, it's essentially injustice to the Black and brown community. So if we can figure out a way forward together, I think absolutely what Henry's saying is very relevant to our conditions in this community. And if we can't find a way forward, we're just spinning the wheel. And, you know, at that point, I mean, I just have to say it's arbitrary to think that, just because we're not elected officials, not essentially, what is it, based on their district, if they're not at large, that's what I was looking for. This is, going to take all of us to come together and figure out a reasonable way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Redding, for your comments. Clerk Jones, anyone else?
No, that exhausts our list, unless we have someone
Yes, I
present.
see.
Yeah.
Please state your name and address when you get to the microphone.
Good evening, Council. My name is Marva Williams, 946 East Soren Street in South Bend. I want to start off to saying that I am very nervous, and I hope I make it through this, but I've been having a problem with the lead program, and it's going on 4 years now that they have just started on my home. And they're about finished with it. During the time before they even started on my home, excuse me, my home in the basement's full of black mold, ceilings falling down in my bedroom. I've just been having so many problems with that house. Like I said, I've been in it since '68 and trying to reach out here and there for help. During this time, someone told me to go to a Heritage Foundation, and I went to them, and I had told Mr. Marco Marley what my problem was. And he told me he thought that they could help me with it. But I was speaking about the mold in my bedroom, the ceiling falling down in the bathroom. And he asked me at that time, how was my roof? And I told him I thought it was okay, but there's some leaking in the house. He asked me about my hot water heater, and I told him I thought it was okay. So he told me that they would try to help me out. So he sent over Mr., I believe his name was Sadafi, and he was speaking to me and telling me just what they could do for me. So I told him, okay, so they came to the house, checked things out, and then at that time, I was thinking they were going to address these problems that I was having, but they were basically talking about putting me on a new roof for the leakage in my house, and that we would go from there. Well, as today, they didn't do everything that they said that they would do. And I thought that it would have been a grant. But I come to find out when Mr. Sadafi was talking to me, it was for $10,000, and I had to pay the $5,000 back. And like I said, my back was up against the wall then, and I just went ahead and said I would. And I signed agreement form, and they put a lien on my house, telling me that I could stay in my home as long as I'm living, but when I'm gone, that debt would have to be paid back. And I told them, okay, I just did not have the money, and I just didn't know what to do because I've been waiting on this other organization for over 3 years. And I have family, their great-grandkids as well as grandkids, and I just couldn't take it any longer. So Mr. Marco came out the house, and we sat on the porch, and we talked about the situation and everything. And I usually read over everything, but then, like I said, my back was up against the wall, and something had to be taken care of. So I had signed it then, but ever since, this has been 2 years ago, and ever since then I've regretted signing it, because that is my only legacy for my family as well as myself, and I've been worried to death about this ever since this has happened, and regretted that I ever signed it. And I just don't have the $5,000 to pay it back. But I know, like I said, I signed that paper, and that was my fault. But at the time, like I said, my back was up against the wall, and I'd been reaching out for help. So, like I said, they finally came after almost 4 years this year and started doing the work on the home. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, do you have copies of the, Ms. Williams,
Pardon me?
do you have copies of the contract?
Yes, I do.
Okay, if you don't mind giving it to the clerk's office to make a copy, please.
Yes, I will.
Thank you so much for your time.
And thank you.
Is there anyone else? With that being said, there's no one else. I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
There you go. On the east side. I grew up on the east side. I've been in my home since 60.